We are very lucky to have this really space in our winery. You know, it's when I remember when I was a child, we had a winery where the cellar was like this, and now we have I think 800 meters square in these tunnels, and then a lot of money came in this region. And it was also the time of neo-romantic, when people in the east of Germany, they were dreaming about Goethe, they were reading Goethe, and Goethe was a big fan of wine and Mosel and Rhine, and so it was very à la mode to drink wines from here. And so money from all around came, investments here, they made investments and saying, well, let's invest in wine. No? And then they made houses and constructed, even in modern structures like society, they were limited, and winemakers, wine farmers, they were shareholders of that. And okay, you know the story out then was World War #1, World War #2, Germany bankrupt, wine culture bankrupt. And then we started in the 80s here, we could buy this for nearly nothing. First we rented, then we bought, and they nearly made us gift because nobody wanted to take care about it. And finally we bought it in 92, we changed to make wine here in 83. And so we started it at the point zero of the crisis, at the deepest point of the crisis. And at the moment, we will never could buy this at the money we invested at the time before. Nobody wanted to drink wine from Mosel because it was considered to be sweet and shitty, and the world was flooded with all these wines, and people said, no, I drink what I want, but maybe I drink Chablis or Italian wines or Edelzwicker from Alsace, but never Mosel. No? And then we were thinking, you know, we start with no money, and then you have to think also quicker than people who are settled, who have money. And then we were really thinking about the question, what do we want to do? And then we right clearly, we decided not to make that sweet wines, to make a dry wine. And we said, okay, we will do the wine now in the way that we think wine should be done. And if we are bankrupt, then we are bankrupt, then I go back to university making a PhD or whatever. But I will not make that compromise making wines which I don't like. And this was the first step of being successful, because it's still today the question, you are mainstream, but if you do it, say, okay, this is a piece of culture, I do it, and I think it should be done, and then I'm looking for the customer, and this concept like the customer is the king, I don't feel like that. My customer can be my friend, can be my partner, but I will not allow him to be my king. I do the wine in the way I think it should be done, and then I'm looking for people who like it or not. Fortunately, people more and more like the way we do it, because as an antithesis to this idea of taste optimizing, globalized world of wine with food design and all the yeast and enzymes and all that, but there is more and more people say, no, I don't want to have a good tasting. I want to have a wine which has an identity, who tells me a story where it's coming from. Like all the world flooded with Chardonnays, more and more people say, no, I want to taste the taste of Meursault, Corton, whatever the wine is coming from. And this makes a completely different approach. And this is not the fight against the industrial wine. I will not fight against MP3 players or the reproduction of a poster of Marc Chagall. But we should communicate a difference. It's not easy to find out that difference. Like when you make a photograph, is this a photograph when it was worked for 3 hours or 5 hours in Photoshop? Is this still an authentic photography, or is still a product of a computer? No? So there are a lot of new cultural discussions we have to find out. Like my grandfather was, sometimes I think he was a very happy man. He tried to make a wine which was good tasting and storable. Sometimes it happened, sometimes less. There was no book he wrote, there was no tools yet. Now we have much too much tools. We know about all the Botox and the silicone, what we could use to make the wine better. And it's our cultural decision not to use that, because we say, if we don't make you this, we do this. No? And this is a fantastic story, because it's difficult to communicate, true. But on the other hand, it's something which makes a lot of fun, because you don't know the way. It's not a black and white thinking. It's a finding a path, and when we speak wine to be a contribution to culture, we have to accept that culture is not one line like this and not like that and that. There had been times in history where there was, like in Russia or in the Soviet times, this was, and then no, or here in Germany the same. No? And now there's a very good aspect of democracy that we can think and discuss about different ways to make wine or to paint or to make music. And I would say also I like Rolling Stones and I like Mozart. It's not that I don't like, no? It's I wouldn't say this is good and this is, no. There's one day I really want to hear this and that makes it very fantastic to make wine also, that we try to find out our path of way, but still drinking a wine from here and there, you get new inputs, you get new ideas of what wine is. No? And in this context, it's very important to say that wine is a child of culture. Wine is culture. Wine is not a natural product. In the modern marketing, people always consider the wine to be nature. I think this is a very stupid approach because even the vineyard is not a natural land. God did not decide to let grow grapes there. It was my grandfather who made it. No? When we consider this as nature and you as a human to interact with nature, the question is how civilization starts, when culture starts, what is the way to interact with nature that a new thing will start up. And so for me it's the metaphor of saying wine is something which happens between the human's brain and the nature. Wine happens between the idea of Apollon as the god of Congenius and Dionysus as the god of chaos, between control and laissez-faire, between structure and chaos. So somewhere there between wine happens. It happens. Winemaking means let be creation. Give a frame of energies and then new things can happen. No? And these new things also means when I see these barrels, they all grow on slate. All the barrels we have here, they're not from any country everywhere. It's not that they're German or French. Important for us is that they grow on slate. Because I want to give my wine a frame where the energy of the slate soil can influence the wine. I don't want to give the aromata of wood for my wine. No? This is the wrong concept. The concept is let happen the identity of the vineyard. And actually for doing that, it's quite important for us not to use all the modern tools that the industry is offering me. Because when we speak out the taste of a soil, what does it mean, the taste of a soil? It's an authentic rock which developed to earth and who made this, all the microbes living in the soil. So it's essential not to kill all the microbes which come in with the grapes. So it's absolutely taboo for us to give some sulfur powder or bentonite or enzymes or cultured yeast or whatever. Just press it, let it clean up by sedimentation, put it in a wooden cask and waiting what happens. And this is for me the idea of terroir vinification, to let happen a very individual, a very singularity of wine. We never know exactly what happens. And I would tell you, at the moment I know what will happen, I would be on the wrong side of life, because then I'm more the product manager than the enologue. And I won't be the enologue who makes what you should do and then waits, and then I always want to be surprised at the end of the day what's coming out. I don't want to know it. I want to be surprised, because this gives me the feeling of being part of a very nice and very peaceful, energy helping, warm process of wine. No? And what taste will change, develop, and the aging potential of the wine is there. The question is if you like the wine after 50 or 100 years. But this is your private story. It's like a cheese. You like it very fresh. You like cheese really running on the table. It's up to you to find out the moment where you consider that would be the best. And it's very easy to say, oh, the wine is bad, but keep it for 10 years, then it will be good. All the speeches in marketing. And people are very sensitive about this questions of put it away, that will be good ones. And so I have to prove. For me, a good wine is a wine who is not lying. For me, a good wine is a wine where there is some congruence between the information on the label and the way of presentation and what's inside. Question is, what do you want to do? No? You want to make a wine. You want to make a good tasting wine. You want to make a wine which has a cultural message. There are different layers on what wine is and what wine could be. You know, you make it and people say, "Wow, what's this? Why this wine is touching me? What's happened with the energy?" And this is something what is it's not easy. And I don't know what to do or not to do to have it, no? Or to reach that point. Because here you can see what makes Röttgen typical. This is the slate which gives the identity to Röttgen. No? You see at this that the inside it's blue. You know, when the stone breaks, and here is a new place where it broke, so it's blue. And then after a time, the yellow brownish color comes back, which comes out, which means that the iron which is in the soil is changing to be oxygenized. The fact that the color is changing is the proof that this sediment grew under anaerobic conditions. Well, there was, you know, it was some 12 kilometers deep sea ground 400 million years ago. And it took also 10, 12 million years to fill up the sea ground with different sediments. And one of the sediment is coming more from the seaside, others coming from the land. And those blue slates, they're mostly coming from seaside because they grew anaerobically. And now when they come to the air, they will change their color to get brown and the iron will come out. No? Others, like in Ulmrödlei, they are dark red, which means they already had been oxygenized before they came to the sea. Before they'd been in the sea, and then 325 million years ago, Gondwana, the second continent, came from the south, and he was meeting the old red continent, and by this big collusion, the former continents, the sea ground was slated, was pressed together and stoned in the real sense of the word. No? The modern steep slopes, like this here, where you have a street up and down, and you have maybe one wall maximum, sometimes no wall at all, which they started to reconstruct the countryship in the 70s or 60s, make the vineyards able for mechanization. And this is still the mind of politics and most of the winemakers also, to make all vineyards or to prepare them for mechanization, which means at the end of the picking machine also for steep slopes, which is terrible, but this is the modern way of winemaking. Then you see the really good steep slopes on the wrong side of the Mosel there. Everything is lead because they're looking north. So now with global warming, it's not too bad there. I know this because we had, which is me, my father, had a vineyard there, but it's quite far to reach it, and so at the end of the day I'm happy not to have a vineyard there because it's filled with wild boars, and if you have one plot only and the rest is trees, it's impossible. And then you come where we are here, back to the Middle Age, where we feel well. You know, this is the terraces. They were made whenever in Roman time before, and some even later in Prussian time, but here the soil never was labored, and so this is a real puristic soil, which is nothing than slate. No? So there was never a manipulation, and it was never destroyed. Also, they made the wall, they grabbed what they found behind, they put it behind, and that's it. The percent, you know, when we speak about soils or stones, we always speak about the percentage between clay, silt, and sand, the particles. No? And here we are in a high percentage of sand and silt, and this makes the stone much harder, and the longevity of the stone is much more than this here. No? So when you make a wall with this stone, I would say after 150, 200 years, the stone will be destroyed. If not by weather that the wall breaks, no? But only even the mineralization rate of the stone, in average, would be like this. When you make a wall with this stone, I think that will be good for 400 years, because the stone is much harder. And so we buy. There is some 40 kilometers from here. We can buy the stones, and then we go for that. And it's sometimes we go more in reddish colors, more more in blue. But it's also that, like this, when we weighed this, it was very reddish, but then the iron was washed out by rain, and it looks like this. No? So the color is good for communication, but it's a communication that at the end I don't really like, because it came to a situation that people say this is a typical red slate, and then they speak about the taste of red slate, and I think this is a very stupid idea, because the color is maybe shows you the percentage of hematite. Even not of iron, but there can be a blue slate which has much more iron than the red one. It's not oxygenized, so you don't see it. No? And then make a correlation between this one shortly aspect of stone who gives this color to the flavor. For me, this is not, it's not true.
Like that.
It makes no sense. So when we speak of differences of the salts, I say this is Uhlenrotla and this is red, this is Röttgen, it's blue, but the phenotype is yellow-brown, so when we communicate, we say in Röttgen the slate has this color, just to have a tool to communicate. But I always refuse to make a correlation between this and this, because seriously, we don't know. There is a correlation, but the correlation also has to do with the climate here, with the humidity here, with the microbes which are going to transform the soil to earth, and later earth to make it eatable for the plant. And there's so many things between, and this is a formula with a lot of unknown characters, so I really don't want to speak like that, because it's not serious. Because red slate in this climate and this, they can be different, and green and blue and whatever you call it. No? You see here and there is a new plant. Here you see a plant which was planted maybe 2 years ago. Here you see a plant which died, which we have to replant next year. No? Okay. And so every year or every second year we cruise through our plots and to see which plant we should where we should plant back. So in average the age will be on the same level. No? So it's always a mixture of lots of different planting dates and also different plants. In the last year's clones, but in further times uncrafted ones. So even here we have a very high percentage of uncrafted ones, and when we go to replant, we use our own selection Mosel and replant them uncrafted. So every year the percentage of uncrafted is high. When I see the grape, then I think the taste must be better, because the berries are much smaller, much more healthy, so they are much less affected by botrytis, and they have much more vitality, much more energy. So there are vintages you won't see any difference, but the more extreme the vintage is, like the drier it is or the wet, or they are much more adapted here to everything, so they show always nice grapes. Always smaller ones, smaller bunches. So when you have American rootstocks for the first 20 years, you have things like that, which you make half to come back to a serious relationship of yield, but when you have uncrafted, you don't need to take care about this. They are always small, they will be small, they will age 100 years. So, you know, the reason that like my father and grandfather, they planted American rootstocks was not a reason to fight against phylloxera, because we had no phylloxera here. It's much too warm and too dry here in the soils. No? But the reason was to high up the yields, which was American rootstocks, they give you double. Yeah. And now we are running back, because we don't want to have volume. We want to have something which please your mouth. No? Well, Uhlen is what you see here. We are in the beginning of Uhlen, and then you see here this curve, no? Where the burning point is there, where Uhlenrotla is. Well, when you speak about the quality of a wine in Mosel, that means you have an optimum in microclimate. And this means amphitheater facing south, a belt of trees protected the cold winds to fall down. You have the mirror effect of Mosel, steep, stall, and dam. Then you have an optimum for the microclimate. And then, to make a Grand Cru, you have a soil which is unique. In total, this is 1.5 hectare only, where we have this geological fermentation, which brings us this taste, what we have here. No? The soil here shows a little bit more bluish, and that's it. No? The microclimate may be the same a little bit further on, but the soil here gives another taste. And it's up to us to find out where the soil is different where it starts to make sense, another wine. And historically it was only Uhlen. And it was me to decide that the soils are so different that we have to vinificate 3 different ones. That we really could convince also the other colleagues in my village to fight for that. And we were asking in Brussels for having the first appellation contrôlée on single vineyard site in Uhlen. And this happened now, we got a permission. It's a mixture of historical proof and what happens on your palate and how you work. Which means großes Gewächs starts by the quality of the soil. Quality of the soil for us in Mosel is something what historically is learned, because since centuries we speak about this plot and this plot to be the best. The word Grand Cru was not used, but we have historically a lot of classifications, especially made by the government to get taxes. So they wanted to have higher taxes from the better plots, and so there was a high research on if this is really good or not. And maybe in one plot they have even 3 different classes for paying different tax. So there was a very intense, like the Prussians with their logic and with their strengths. And so we got it started in the new time. It's Prussian, and even a little bit earlier, I would say that Napoleon, after the French Revolution, he started to remake the Catastrophe of France. And the important story for us is that there was 1802, there was a new instruction from the Ministry of Finance who said, if you do the new classification, take care that exactly the plots where the yields are very low, they might be the best. No? And with this new thinking, we started having a classification dated by the French, was finished by the Prussians. And this, for our region, for Mosel, it's very, very nice to see that they made only 3% to be Grand Cru, not more. And this is a very good historical beginning of saying we shouldn't exaggerate with Grand Cru. If you start to be too democratic and ask everyone where is Grand Cru, they will say, oh, this is Grand Cru, and the neighbor is everything bad. So the classification shows this, but it's not only the historical fact, it's that Grand Cru is an offer to humans to make a good wine. It's me to make it. Like in Burgundy, this is the result of a few hundred years serious interact of humans with nature, and this is a piece of culture, which is also an economical part of our society. Everyone wants to get more and have it to make easier and to sell it. But that's it. No? So there are fights, like there had been in Burgundy when they made their classification. We also had very sad discussions about is this vineyard good enough and not. But this is life. And we never had erosion problems. We have erosion problems there when those idiots, engineers of the 60s, they were putting away the walls for mechanization, and then they labor the soil, and then the soil switched down, and you have to come ask for a big truck to put it in to bring it back. And now, fortunately, for the sustainable aspect, these terraces are, they started a few thousand years ago, and this is a system of if you maintain the wall, then every 100, 200 years, which means every year, there is a wall which is breaking. So you have to go there to remake it. But if you do this, then you have a very stable system. No? Even if you come back with stones, this is what we're starting. Like this place here, we have to put stones because you see that the green is passing through. And we have to cover with more stones in winter time. So this is something what in 30 years was done always in winter, but now in the last 50 years nobody made it anymore. And so we have a lot of heritage where we should take care of to make it, to bring back the vineyard in this system of sustainability.